I'm dragging him on my knees. We're on the upper tier. I drag him on my knees out of his cell enough that I can see my mod worker. And I go, hey, you want to hit that red button on the wall? It's a panic button. I'm asking this mod worker to help me, right? What I didn't realize was he's already been hitting it. Nobody's coming and responding to help me.
All right, welcome. This is Joel from The Hack Life. I'm here with Grandmaster David Amiccuci. Your style of practice is Kajukenbo. So you're Grandmaster in Kajukenbo, and you've been training in, we were just talking offline earlier, you've been training in martial arts since the 4th grade. So we don't even know how old you are. I'm not trying to figure that out. But it's been a long time.
Yes.
And you've been training in just martial arts in general for over 40 years. You worked in law enforcement for almost 30 years, 29 exactly. And for a part of that time, you were on a tactical team.
As a team leader. Yeah.
As a team leader.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. We're here in Fairfield, California. You are the successor to Ahgung Tony Ramos Kajukenbo. And I really wanted to talk to you and interview you because to me, I find self-defense to be just so valuable and so important. And I feel like you are one of the leaders in self-defense. I've been around tons of people in the martial arts world. I've trained in various martial arts. I've been around just various practitioners and martial artists. And out of all of them, in my experience, you are one of the most gifted. And there's just a difference, I would say, when you have put your hands on me than somebody else. I don't know if people can understand that. But yeah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited.
So, hey, to get started, I wanted to just talk a little bit about your upbringing and your background. You're from Schenectady, New York, but I was wondering if you could just go Schenectady. Any Schenectady fans out there? Population of
Gosh, I don't even know now.
This is like uptown New York. This isn't like when people think of New York, they always think of like Manhattan.
Yeah,
Schenectady
I'll
is
never
like
forget going to Hawaii and we went a little tour and they were like, "Hey, who's from New York?" And I raised my hand. They go, "That's what a tree looks like," and they laughed and everything. And my wife was like, "Oh, he's never been to upstate." We're about 3 hours from the city. Yeah,
okay.
3 hours from the city. It's what it's most famous for is General Electric Corporation. They used to have their main plant there, which was like a city. Yeah. Okay,
cool. So talk to me about your upbringing and how did you were you always like an athlete? Like, I just interviewed a chiropractor who's a big martial artist the other day, and I asked him, "Hey, how did you get into martial arts?" And he said, "Well, in Brooklyn, New York, I grew up. It was kind of dangerous, so I was doing self-defense out of just like self-preservation." How did you fall into martial arts or?
It's a great question. I come from a large family. There's 7 of us. I'm the youngest, but everybody's much older. My sister is like 18. My oldest sister's 18 years older than me. So I spent a lot of time by myself at home because they were always doing their own thing and everything. So I would get bored. Okay, I'd be extremely bored when it was summertime, and I'd drive my mother crazy. And my mother would tell me, read books, read books. But unfortunately, I didn't realize till later on, I don't learn that way. And I have problems with reading, and I'm a hands-on learner. Can you figure? Right?
Yes, yeah, go figure.
So anyways, long story short, she wanted me to get her out of her hair. So she's like, okay. I go, "Mom, I see Kung Fu on TV. I want to do martial arts." She goes, okay. And long story short, no martial arts in the early, in the mid-'70s, early 70s. No martial arts was available nearby. Then finally, a judo school opened up. It was about 20 or 30 minutes away. But I was already a grappler. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's judo. I want to do, Kung Fu. I want to do martial art. I want to do karate.
So what do you mean you were a grappler?
Collegiate grappling, freestyle, and Greco-Roman. Yeah.
So, and how long have you been doing that prior to this fascination with martial arts and that, I want to do more like the Chinese martial arts?
It was like
Japanese?
It was like around, ever since it started coming up on TV, that's what I have. So however old you are when you're like like in around fourth grade, they had like an intramural program in school.
But in fourth grade, you were already doing wrestling?
Wrestling.
That was already something you had been doing, practicing?
Yes,
Okay.
like fourth, fifth grade. And then as like intramural in school. And then what happened was I finally, nothing. So I just kind of banged it out. So my mom's like, I got to get you out of the house. So I started doing Pop Warner football when I was 9. And I just continued playing football. Then around when I was getting I was in high school, I decided I was going to go into the military. So my mom's like, we're going to find you a place. I go, funny you should say that. A place opened up right down here, and it's nearby. It's called the Martial Arts Academy, Ron LeBlanc. It was a martial art called Pangai Noon. And that was my first introduction to doing an actual martial art.
And how old was that roughly for you? How old
so
were you?
That
That
at
was
that age, I
fourth
was
grade
probably
is what you're
around
talking about?
17. Probably
Okay.
like 17. Yeah, I'd say 17, 18. Yes.
And you already had your base was wrestling.
Yes,
Okay.
wrestling, and I used to get in a lot of trouble when I used to fight. I used to fight a lot.
Give me a story. Tell me, what do you mean you used to get
man.
Whoa.
Okay, so I wear glasses, right? So I was a short, stout, a little Italian kid, right?
Little Italian Goomba.
Very quiet, you know. And I just like had this little sign like "mess with me," right? But from wrestling and from playing football and everything, I didn't really take a lot of stuff. So I would get picked on. So when they would pick on, I would protect myself back. But
Yeah.
it was the grappling and the contact sports thing, and that mad Italian temper.
Yes.
That martial arts saved my life. Definitely.
I think you told me a story though when it came to wrestling. You told me a story. I don't think you've ever been pinned. Was that right?
Oh no! What? So, huge example. So, like, when I was in the mat room, okay, the wrestling room, when we're training, man, nobody could take me down. I would like never. That would be my thing, right? But when I would go out and I would go into like a tournament or something like that, I would get this anxiety thing that would go on, and I'd get like tunnel vision, and just it was just something I just had to work on, right? That I had to work with, So, but yes, when I was in the mat room, I especially up on our feet and takedowns. But yeah, I was like never like in the mat room. If there was 2 or 3 times someone took me down, it was like it was a lot. That was a lot.
Wow. Very cool. Pangai Noon, what does that translate into?
Tiger, crane, and dragon. They say it's the mother art of of like all the ruse. Very dynamic tension. Everything was very dynamic tension. The surinji, for all the moves. And I never forget when I brought my wife home to New York, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you do you did martial, yeah."
Just real quick,
Okay.
Your wife is Simo Leah Ramos
yes.
Amiccuci.
Yeah.
So she is a martial artist.
Sixth degree. Yeah.
Born and bred in a family of martial artists.
Yes, since she was 4.
Yeah. One of Ahgung Tony Ramos's daughters.
Yes, his older daughter.
Who does Kajukenbo.
Yes.
So she already had her bias of like this is the best martial art.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you brought her back, she's like, I don't want to hear any of this. I don't want to hear any of this kind of crap. Don't show me your fugazi martial art that you did back in the day. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. In fact, she was like, when we were here, she was like, show me what you got. Show me your stuff like that. And I showed her a form, and she's like, so she went, of course, who's she going to go to? She went to her pops, right? And she was like, "Pops, have you heard of this?" Like that. And he goes, "Oh yeah, darling, it's all," he's like, doing the surinji, and she was like, "Yeah." So then when we went to New York to visit one time, and I brought her to meet my instructor, and he actually performed for her, and she was like, "Dang, that's different, right?" I go, "Yes."
Anything that you could take away from Pangai Noon? Anything? How do you implement that today, or any takeaways from back then that you still use today that you find useful? And like Simo Leah might say at first was able to brush it off. Big deal. But for you,
when I started actually training in the dojo, there wasn't they would spar, and we sparred different there. and in Peng Ai Noon, the stances are different and everything. So what I took from there is they focus from very much of a tiger, where they just destroy everything. It's like Imua, it's charge. And you go straight through, and they work a lot on body conditioning to take shots, to take blows, and not to sit there and let somebody hit you, but as you're going in and to go through and just rip everything. So that intensity and that go forward spirit, definitely carry that over. Yes.
And then also, it sounds like the syringe and the also that mind training to be able to take a shot.
Absolutely. Yes. Where you're not feeling it.
Okay.
Until later, maybe.
Yeah. So then fast forward, you go into the military.
Yes.
And what branch?
United States Air Force.
So is that what brought you, because we're shooting this in Fairfield, California.
Yes.
So a guy from Schenectady, New York, is that how you ended up here on the West Coast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Master LeBlanc, so I'm training with him, right? And I'm like, I got to go, I remember I told you I was going in this service. So yes, David, yes. And you're talking 84, right? So he said, I'm sorry, in 1984, around 1983. And he said, I said, I'm in delayed enlistment, I want to continue my martial arts education. He goes, okay, so let's figure this out. He goes, if you want to do PKA, full contact, so back in those days you had to be a black belt to compete. He goes, if you want to do PKA, then full contact fighting, go to Texas. They have like some of the best fighters in Texas. Go apply to go there. Put in your dream sheet. He goes, but man, if you want to go where the mecca of martial arts is, he goes, go to California. Wow. So I, God's will, I just sat there and I put in my dream sheet, Travis Air Force Base, because they had a tactical unit there. And what I found out was the paperwork was a SAC detachment. The paperwork was kind of outdated, so that SAC detachment wasn't there anymore, but I still managed to come to Travis. So I was looking for a martial arts school when we came here. I couldn't find it. So
how? If this is the Mecca, how did that happen?
Okay, well, it's because I was like 19-ish, and I didn't have a car yet. I just got stationed here, so I had to walk everywhere.
Okay.
So in the locale, I wasn't going out and about. So my thing was I was going to train with one of the instructors on base.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything available. So what I did was I immersed myself in intramural sports on the base, because I was an athlete, and I did powerlifting. I got heavily into powerlifting, competitive powerlifting. So I did that, and I grappled on the base, intramural grappling. So that's how I immersed myself.
Wow.
But then finally, one day, we go to a movie, the movie theater, and it was no parking. So my buddy, I go, hey, man, pull in the back. There's an alley in the back. We get in the alley, and it was hot that night, I remember, really hot. And this back door was open, and I heard these power kiosks. And I'm like, dude, that's a martial arts school. Let's go over there. So we walk over. We go into the martial arts school, and they had these old couches there. We're like, sit down on the couches, and here's this, Hawaiian Filipino guy down there, and he's teaching class. And I was like, wow. And then, they took, a break, and he walks over, and he goes, hey, can I help you guys? Like that. And I was like, oh, yes, sir, we're interested, and look at that. My friend's like, you're interested, But I was observing what was going on, and, man, I could just feel the energy, man. I just felt it, and I was hooked, I was hooked. His personality, where you just knew he was the man, he was the dude. And I just knew I was home, man. From there, I was like, wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
When it's funny to hear you say, it's like in this behind, in a garage or something, right?
Yeah, the dojo. Okay, so Rocky 1, right?
Yeah.
Where he goes in, you're in his first training place, right? The mirrors, there's probably 6 mirrors in there, and every one of them had tape on it. It was broken. The mat was old school. It was carpet pad covered with what do you call it? Canvas.
Okay.
and there was holes all in the mat. There was tape on it and stuff. It stunk. The wall sweat more than everybody, and everybody was sweating. It just was like that. It was like Rocky. That. And I didn't look at it like I knew. I didn't even. You know what, man? I didn't even see that. All I saw was what he had going on.
It's cool though, because back in the day, it seems like most martial arts, like that's kind of how they kind of came out, right? Of like garages and stuff. Now it seems like you have to go to like a flowery kind of dojo or like these nice mats.
Easy.
No.
I'm kidding.
Not to say that you have a flowery dojo. This is beautiful. We're here, but right. I mean, and that was like the norm though. Like these kind of like garages and like
Absolutely.
guys just pounding each other in. It seems like.
Absolutely.
Nobody's signing waivers or no one has insurance. It's just like
right.
No one's even considered that. This is just kind of, I guess, the birth of these garage gyms almost, right?
Yes. And that's where that's where he started out, right? He started out on I believe it was Swan Way in Fairfield, and he just taught and was just little and just a handful of people. So like a lot of people say, oh, I'm old school, TRK, I'm Tony Ramos Kajukenbo, old school, I tell him, man, you're not old school. All the people that are old school to me are the ones that started in his garage. That's the old school, and most of it was family and very, very close friends and GIs, because my father-in-law, Ahgung Tony Ramos, he was a jet engine mechanic at Travis Air Force Base, and that's how he came to come here.
Talk to me a little bit about the origin of Kajukenbo, how it was founded, and why it was founded.
And all this history that I'm giving you is how the Hawaiians gave it. Word of mouth, talking to Tony Ramos and Ahgung, what we call him Ahgung, and he basically there were these founders, and they were young. They were very young, and I didn't realize that till like later on. They were kind of they're street dudes, right? They're street guys, especially Ahgung's main instructor, which is Joseph Imprado. And they trained in Hawaii, and it was kind of rough and tumble there, because people say Hawaii rough. They go, absolutely, especially after World War II.
Yeah.
A lot of the GIs they didn't just leave. They just hung out after they got out and the war was over and everything. So what they found is the straight karate, the straight judo, the straight jiu-jitsu. They felt they had some holes in their game, and what they did is like, hey man, I like what you do. The foundation has always been Kempo karate. Law of the fist, right? Very aggressive, destroying techniques, not just blocking. But so what happened?
The block could be your block.
The block is a strike.
Is a strike. Yes.
Yes. Right. So Hawaiians cut their words short. A lot of times when they talk quick, right? Especially Ahgung, and he'd see. So it's this so that's not like an outward strike block. It's an outward strike block, right? It's not an outward strike, or it's not an outward block. It's an outward strike block. So you want to destroy the tactic that comes at you, right? So anyways, they came across, and they were like, these guys came together, karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, kempo, and Chinese kung fu, and they found out there was like little holes in their game. So they said, they didn't teach separate blocks. So it isn't like kind of like an MMA fighter maybe of today that is like, oh, I got to learn my boxing first, and then I'm going to go do that. So right away. So like if you get grabbed, if you get attacked and you get grabbed, the judo guy is like, well, you know how to do a judo throw. Yeah, but the guy might punch you in the face after you're doing that.
Right.
So what they do is you got to stun him first. So the Kempo guy is like, oh, yeah, we're going to blast him with a short blast. Then we're going to lock up and throw him. And the jiu-jitsu guy, and then we'll do a breaking sequence, and we'll just go for the break.
Yeah. It's so, just hearing you tell this, the origin just reminds me of just how beautiful the art is and how it all just kind of interconnects and interweaves from one move to the other. And I'm just thinking about some of the basic techniques that a student might learn when they come in, if somebody grabs you and that stun and everything. It's very cool for me right now in this moment. Thanks. Talk to me about just Ahgung, the kind of man he was that you what you remember about him, and maybe just some of his training philosophies, or just some of the stories you can remember.
Man, and you got to remember the era, the day, and what and where everything came from, right? That's where we got to go. And, the local boy, Hawaiians, man, they had old sayings, right? And one of the sayings was, punch first and ask questions later, right?
Yeah.
Type thing. So it was very rough and tumble. But he had some unreal practices. So when he first came here from Hawaii, he taught, you teach the way that you were taught, right? So they trained like madmen there, at this Palama settlement and in Wahiwa, they had different areas. They had 3 different areas that they had schools, Palama, Wahiwa, and Kaimaki. And even though they branched out and they had that, Palama was the hub, right?
Yeah.
But when their training, they would say, training wasn't complete unless there was blood on the floor. Well, you got to remember. So we have a lot of forms, different types of martial arts forms or katas, especially in the Ramos method. We have those. But originally there was only 8. There was only 8. So they trained 2 hours, at least 2 hours a day for 5 days a week. So what are you going to do? They didn't do katas, right? All they did was self-defense. So what happens when you do self-defense and everybody starts getting tired and all that testosterone's in there and it's built up? Yeah, people are getting knocked out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was crazy. No kids were ever allowed to train, and it wasn't any women allowed at the beginning. Then eventually it came. So what happened was Ahgung didn't start teaching kids. His kids were the first kids that were started.
Oh, wow.
And then he grabbed a couple with him, with Tony Ramos Kajukenbo. And he would do some stuff that he could only get away with, right? But some of the old school Kajukenbo thing is they'd put people in horse stances, right? In a horse stance, and they would climb up on you and they would stay there and you'd have to hold their weight. He could get away with it with his stature, right?
Yeah.
With that. But, so we had to kind of find a means to do things. Otherwise we wouldn't have this nice, beautiful school we have here, this academy here, right?
Yeah.
So we had to change it up a little bit. So we had to modify our training, of course. He also would do crazy things, but he had the uncanny ability to bring the best out of you, okay? And it's because he taught with his heart, right? So he knew where he could take you.
Yeah.
And not just one person. I can't say, because I know I could take you to places that you can go, but I know maybe that next person, they can't go there, right?
Right.
I got to stop a little bit short. You just got you got too much stuff going on. I got to work on you. Because if I take you to where they can go, you're going to be like, dude, okay,
it's too
this
much
is
for me.
nothing.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
you're
of
like,
course.
this is easy for me, right? So we have to step it up, right? But yeah, Ahgung would do some crazy stuff that, I'd get arrested for, right? Right. But, but he, and what I mean is I got to share this one. This is crazy. My wife is going to be like, so he would take a crochet needle. Right? It's rounded, but it's metal, right?
Yeah.
And he'd stay in your push-up position, stay in that plank position, right? And he's like, boom. And kids are shaking. And he would go underneath them with it. If you fall, you're going to impale yourself, right? And of course they would,
Yeah.
But of course he would put it down,
Yeah.
and he wouldn't, he'd go, you could do it. You could do it. It was like, wow. I'm like, wow. Yeah, we're not doing that one. Right. Yeah.
Oh, we got to bring that back. Bring back the crochet needle.
Yeah.
Maybe you could bring a rubber one, a rubber one or something.
A rubber one, right?
A story I remember too is I wanted to ask you, why did you think early on when you started doing this martial art that this was legit, this was effective? And I know one of the stories you told me, you said, hey man, you don't need to go out there and prove yourself with this martial art. You don't need to go out there and get into fights and see if this stuff works. I remember you telling me this. You said, Ahgung's already done that for us.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, or just maybe even why you thought it was just so effective, or were there stories or that he was, he would say, hey, I know this works and this is why.
Okay. You know what? It would be safe to say that he never like would tell me stories
Yeah.
like that. It was always told by people that were there,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
And that's when I know, whoa. And then, man, I would hear these stories from like legit, world-class martial artists that knew him, right? Like Aldo Coscos and Bill Owens, and and they would share stories, and I'd be like, whoa, unreal. Or co-workers of his.
Yeah.
So what he did was when he came here from Hawaii, there was no martial arts listing other than judo. They didn't know what karate was.
Really?
So
Wow.
so he couldn't. They didn't even have a place in the phone book to put it. They had to put it under judo. So and this is when he was in the 60s. In the 60s, he actually started a school in I'm not sure the exact street, but he started it in L.A. area, Gardena.
Yeah.
Okay. But his job took him to Travis, so he came here. But when he came here in Fairfield in '62, he would be sitting there, and these GIs would come from. The military guys would end up coming from overseas, and they would have these diplomas and stuff and certificates written in Japanese saying that they were a black belt certified. But what they didn't know is it said in Japanese it was an honorary black belt. But these guys were like, I trained there, like that. And these guys wanted to flex their muscles and stuff. So the local people who know who Tony Ramos was, they're like, oh, if you want to try your stuff out, just go outside a base. His dojo was like outside a base at that time. Just go out there and you can, try out Tony Ramos, Kajukenbo. He'll be happy to, go about it.
Be happy to put on a clinic for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's martial art wise. And people would come in and what would happen is they wouldn't be really respectful when they would come in.
Yeah.
And, old school days, they would lock the door. And, so nobody else would, be bothered or anything. And they would go at it. They would spar,
Yeah.
and then they would just, take their stuff and, make their way back out the door, and that was it. That was their experience. But then what was happening was Fairfield wasn't really culturally diverse back then. And Ahgung, especially when he comes from Hawaii, he got very dark. He was very dark skinned.
Yeah.
So what happened was there was a lot of prejudices and stuff, and they'd call him the N-word.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and so he had to deal with like that. And then what ended up happening was when the GIs would come, they would find him out on base, and he worked on the flight line. But they would take their break and they would go in this non-flight line area and eat. It was like it was a restaurant that they had on base. So,
Yeah.
And he'd be eating with his boss and his supervisor. They'd be sitting down and eating breakfast at like 3 a.m, and this guy would just walk up to the table, and be like, "Hey, are you Tony Ramos?" And then the supervisor I talked to, he's the one who told me this story.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "Yep." And he's and his.
By the way, when you say, "Are you Tony Ramos?" that pretty much means we're gonna fight right now,
right?
right?
And he could tell by the look of the guy, and he knew what he was
Yeah.
there for, right? And Ahgung, he would say too. He'd look at the guy's hands, and you'd see calluses. You could tell he was right.
Yeah.
What he was there for, and his boss is like, "No, Tony, not again, because this was getting to be like a regular thing."
Oh my
and he's
gosh.
like, "Yeah, Tony, not again." And he's like, "I'll be." And then Ahgung would say to him, Ahgung said to him, "Do you want it here or do you want it outside?" Like that. And he goes, "We'll go outside," like that. And he go, "All right," and he's like, "I'll be right back." So he'd go outside, and then 10 minutes later come back in and sit down and eat, and that was it, and
Wow.
But this last story I'm going to share with you
Yeah.
is this is a story that I asked him about because I heard about it. And this changed my outlook, right? So here he is, okay? World-class martial artist, goes ahead and, goes and does what he does and everything. Teaches, he's a reserve police officer. He taught tactics with them in Fairfield PD.
Wow.
So he's driving in his car, and they're at the stoplight, and, these 4 GIs are in the car, and the windows are down. It's summertime, and the GI goes over and he spits on his windshield.
Oh boy!
And he was like, "Hey," and you called him the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said some choice words to him, and then they started getting out of the car. Well, Ahgung had a temper, right? And he got out of the car, and hence, in this middle with the lights and everything, he does a multiple attack.
Wow.
So he gets the first guy, boom, boom, and he does basically like our advanced one. He hits him like 4 times, and guy drops. He goes around to the car. Another guy's trying to get out, and he jams him jams the door with him, and the guy comes out. But when he's doing that, and he's dealing with that guy, he didn't see the other guy that came out of the back seat from the other side, the passenger side. And as he's dealing with this guy, when he turns, boom, the GI hit him and broke his nose.
Whoa.
So I'm like, he broke his nose. He got hit. I'm like, I can't.
What?
Yeah, how did that happen? Right? And it's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yes. And I'm like, oh, I was just like, I didn't think, how could he get hit? I was like that. Well, that was the 18, 19-year-old in me, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, really? Wow. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, that's real. And I never forget, Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face, right?
Right.
Yes. But, it was amazing.
So did he win that fight, by the way, or was it just he survived? Actually, is the key.
I'm
4 people on one, and he survived.
I'm so glad that you said that, because there is no winner in a fight.
Yeah.
Right? His hands were busted up, and we got punched in the nose, sure. But he survived. Yeah, he won. Because what happened was...
That is the win. You survived. Yeah.
When he broke his nose, he couldn't see anymore. So he rolled under the car.
Whoa.
Right? He rolled under because the guy was still up on his feet, right? And then everybody's beeping their horn, like yelling and screaming and everything. So he got back in his car. They got in their cars and they took off. So the side note to that story is Fairfield was only it seemed like there was only a handful of people back then, right?
Yeah.
Well, he went back and he was looking for those guys. And he went back on base and he found them. And they were actually he ruptured one guy's groin. The other one, he broke the guy's arm.
In that fight?
In that fight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so picture these guys that did this, picture him walking up to them while they're in the hospital bed, right?
Yeah.
And they're like looking at him, and then rumor has it that they kind of those 2 guys they kind of got orders, to go someplace else, after that.
Yeah.
Because he was pretty well respected. Ahgung was well respected, and not for so much as never using it in a ill means,
in a malicious way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's funny because I remember when I was training with you, I remember feeling like you would think learning martial arts would make you more destructive, maybe. But I remember thinking, actually, I feel more calm because I feel like I know what I can do, and for that reason, I don't need to prove myself to anybody.
Right, you learn, man. You're good, dude. You're good. You don't realize it, but you take. That's exactly like I got chicken skin. I got verbatim, man. That's me. That's verbatim. So my profession, right? My day job. So being in a corrections facility, direct supervision, can be in there with anywhere between 40 to 100 inmates, and being right up there, and direct supervision isn't that staying behind the closed door talking smack to these guys, and, it's being up with them and being able to survive with that, have them in there, dealing with their problems, dealing with their good stuff and their bad stuff, because we're all human, right?
Yep.
And only thing that they did was they crossed that one line, a line I may have crossed when I was a youngster.
Sure.
Right? But they just got caught doing it,
Yep.
right? So, yeah. But when we're in there with them, and I'm talking about, people go, oh, it's just county, right? County, yeah, people don't realize that they stay in that county until they go to prison. Right? So we have people that spit on the street to murderers, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll be up with them, and to have that confidence to be there with them and to know and usually I don't want to give away my secrets and stuff, but when this is fine, okay, and this is the mouth,
off,
right?
Yeah.
They can pop
Chipping
off.
away.
This is my most dangerous weapon. These two things, my mouth and my brain, right? Your brain. It's your most dangerous weapon. And what I say to myself is, God, I pity them. They don't know what can happen, what can happen.
Yeah.
And then if it keeps going to a point, then my fail safe is I'll look at them and I'll give them the look, right? And let them know, and I'll project myself in them, and I'll say, dude, you need to stop before you see some stuff that you'll never seen before. And that usually
yeah.
Yeah, usually hits
verbal
them.
judo.
Yes.
Talk about that, actually. This is perfect. Talk about, you were in corrections. You worked 29 years for the sheriff's department.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily, I'm not looking for, tell me a story where you beat someone, because it's not about that. But just tell me maybe any memorable story where you just remember, like, man, I'm glad I do Kajukenbo. Like, this worked, or this saved me, this helped me in this moment.
I was probably less than 6 months on the job. I had to put myself through the Weaponless Defense Instructors Academy, which was an 80-hour course. I believe it was 80 hours.
Yeah.
I worked grave shift, and then I had to bring myself to San Jose. I drove there because the sheriff's office wouldn't sponsor me because I was a corrections officer.
Of course, yeah.
So I put myself through the course, and worked with a great instructor, Don Cameron, legendary, and came back and I had this martial arts knowledge, and then I had this legal stuff that we do for law enforcement. And back in the old days, it was basically dang near you had to get punched in the face, before you could protect yourself, in law enforcement. It was different. It was a different era,
Yeah, right now you have to get punched in the face before you can. You're saying back then too, or
back then too? It was
really?
Too. It wasn't even so much as, well, you're supposed to, right?
Right.
So what happened was I was less than 6 months on the job, so I got all these legal stuff in my head,
the mental stuff that is in the background that kind of almost can
handcuffs you.
Yes,
it handcuffs you, right? So, because if I just straight Kajukenbo, if I had in the situation, I'd be fine,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But legality, I'm not.
Right.
So I'm going to tag team this real quick. So I was in a unit with like 40 inmates. Long story short, this guy didn't come out for his meal. I went in there. He was a 5150 inmate.
Someone with a mental illness, basically.
Yes, mentally ill. I had him before, and he got sent away. I didn't realize he went away on an observation for like a week, and then he came back to us. So hindsight, I didn't know what happened, but he didn't get his meds when he came back. They didn't restart him on the meds. The medical program wasn't the greatest 29 years ago. So what happened was I went to check on him, and he attacked me in the cell. We were fighting.
Do you remember how he attacked you?
Absolutely. Yeah. He only had boxers on. He jumped up. I went to check because he had stuff piled on his, and I wanted to see if he had food in his cell. Mm-hmm. So I pushed. It looked like a rat's nest. I pushed it aside, and he jumped up to his feet, and he took both his hands and tried to strangle me. I knocked his hands away, and I hit him with a quick shot distraction strike. I buckled him. He went to the ground. He started coming. He got back. He wasn't feeling it. He was about 200 pounds at the time. Came up, and the fight was on. And I'm trying to restrain him, and I can't hold on to him. He's slippery. And from sparring, you can get timing, right?
Yeah.
So I know the timing. So I'm like, okay, this has been like a minute. There's 2 minutes.
That's a long time for a fight, people. I don't know if people have been in a fight, but that's a minute. 30 seconds is a long time in a fight.
Well, I had a panic alarm on my it's called the LNX alarm. And when you go horizontal, it goes off. If a pin gets pulled, it goes off, or you can manually push it. Well, it got ripped off in the fight, so I already heard it. Ooh. So I'm like, oh, man, the cavalry is going to be here. The big black wall is going to be running in, right? Whatever color the uniforms were then.
Yeah.
So we're sitting in there, and we're going. Well, the only one out in the day room was one of my mod workers. an inmate worker. And so I'm sitting there, and we're on, and I'm like hitting him, and I'm like trying to control him, because I'm trying to use control techniques.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, this isn't, and in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, Well, it's getting to the better part. I'm losing track of time now. Now I'm, my shirt, I feel like I'm a sweat stain. I can't keep a hold of him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, heck with this. So I put my arm around his neck. Okay, I'm not applying a choke. I'm dragging him on my knees. We're on the upper tier. I drag him on my knees out of his cell enough that I can see my mod worker. And I go, hey, you want to hit that red button on the wall? It's a panic button. I'm asking this mod worker to help me, right? What I didn't realize was he's already been hitting it. Nobody's coming and responding to help me.
Wow.
So now, 8 minutes. 9 minutes. So now I'm like physically tired. My arms are cramping. I feel the lactic acid building up. Okay. I'm, banged up, bruised up, because of my knees and stuff, dragging on the cell. So finally I'm like, that's it. So I hook him up. I'm getting ready to do a rear naked choke. I go to hook him up, and he reaches up and he puts his fingers in my eyes.
Wow.
Okay? I parry his hand away. I hit him with a distraction strike with an elbow. And I'm like, that's it, man. It's Kajukenbo mode now, I locked him out.
Life or death, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, it was me or him. I was getting physically, I was physically spent.
Yeah.
So I locked his neck out, and I was going to break his neck. And I locked his neck out. I took him one way, and then all of a sudden I heard the outer door, bam, slam on me. And then I hear all these keys rustling, and here was that wall of officers that came in, and they're like, what happened? I go, he tried to kill me up in here like that. So my sergeant jumped in the air and was getting ready to do an atomic knee. I go, it's too late for that. Right? Just help me cuff him.
Yeah.
So we cuffed him and took him away. So at that point, a lot of things happened. The thing that saved me was the Kajukenbo strive to stay alive, man. Okay? And me thinking of my wife and my children, and I had to get home to something. That's what kept me. That's what changed my martial arts forever. That's when I started becoming more and more prepared and thinking of the street, and always working at that street, thinking about the next step, always taking it to another level. So that's why I won't teach something if it doesn't work. Okay?
Yeah.
We modified. Ahgung, that was what he was known for. Okay, he was known for being an innovator. He taught Kajukenbo as he believed it was, which was very eclectic. Okay, so if it didn't work on street combat stuff that he didn't use it. One day I was teaching at our old school. This old-time black belt walked in. He's from another lineage, okay? Actually, a solid lineage, the very solid lineage, Reyes lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in, and I kind of knew him, but I didn't know him real well, and he just wanted to come to pay his respects. So he walks in, and he bows to Ahgung's picture, right? And he's like, that guy, man, he's really funky, that dude. And I'm like, funky? I guess so. I'm like getting mad, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, fool,
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's my instructor you're talking about, right? So, but this guy's got almost like a Jerry curl, He's, and this is in the 90s or 80s, and he's like, no, because he saw the look on my face.
Yeah.
Like, no, he's fun, he's funky,
like cool,
yeah.
Or he's bad, which means he's cool.
Yeah, he goes out of all the old timers, man. He if it didn't work, he didn't do it, man. And he wasn't afraid to do it. And, one of the things that, was so special was when he implemented Chuan Fa Gong Fu into our system more heavy, right? And what he did was he took someone who was junior to him, probably at least 10 years junior to him, and he was asked to learn from him, and he did.
Yeah.
And he wasn't afraid, he didn't have that, I'm the dude. And he wasn't afraid to say it. Al DeCoscos, actually, and then when Al left, Bill Owens out of Oakland, Ahgung, implemented his stuff through them and sending some of his boys there to learn it, to implement it in our method. Yeah. Am I bouncing around? I'm sorry.
No, this is amazing.
I'm sorry.
This is amazing.
But I got to tell you, that was the defining moment.
Yeah.
Right there. That's the defining moment, and that's why I was like, and you don't know, because that's just like one example.
Yeah.
So when they ran the paperwork, on the alarm,
Yeah.
I was fighting for 12 minutes.
Holy cow.
Yeah, before help came. And what happened was it was a brand new facility at the time, and they had trainees in there, and the field training officer stepped out of the office to get a coffee, and he left trainees in there, right? So I was like, yeah, that was it. But that was really one of those close encounters.
It's crazy because 12 minutes, you look at MMA and boxing, 3 minutes, then you get a break. 5 minutes, then you get a break. You were fighting for your life for 12 minutes. There is no break,
My wonderful supervisor, she was so funny. She goes, "David, I'm so glad it was you up there." I go, "Hey, thanks."
Yeah.
Right, thanks, yeah.
Yeah, it's just true. Because someone else either would have lost their life or they might have had to use force in a manner that just doesn't seem visually aesthetic, or you know what I mean, just something that doesn't maybe not be as appeasing. But you had the confidence in martial arts that you knew your capabilities.
Absolutely.
You knew your capacity. It's funny though you say, because you've said it a couple of times, and it just the mental game that martial arts gives you, that mental strength. And I know one of the lessons that I take away when I look back at my training and where I am now, that's something that I really hold on to. I think almost the martial arts, the moves and everything is nothing in a sense.
Yes.
It's something.
Yes.
It's a portion of it. But I think about who it made me and like the confidence that I have. It's just you cannot replace that. I mean, I don't know how to even explain it to people really.
Well, I gotta share it with you, right? Is you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you can try, right? And just like people say, "What do you do, man? You do this. What do you do?" And I'm like, "Man, you really got to come in, And then if they come in and watch, they're still getting like a quarter of it, but you really don't get it until you step on the floor.
Yeah.
I have parents, I've got people that have been training with me like 30 years, right? They started with me when they're 4 years old. Their parents have been sitting there watching them forever, and the parents are like, "Oh, you got to do this more. You got to do that." And then I'll have like a special parents' night where they can come out and get on the mat. And I'm like, they're like, "Wow, I didn't know," So. Yes.
Yeah, the anxiety and stuff. If they don't want to look foolish, and then it's just different.
Yeah.
A couple of things you said too. One that struck me was the multiple attacks.
Yes.
You're talking about Ahgung, and he had to fight off 4 people. Kajukenbo is known for that.
Yes.
Talk about just some of the rules and principles of multiple attacks and what makes Kajukenbo so special. Because when you look at a lot of other martial arts, I'll just give you an example, like jiu-jitsu, for example.
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu is super popular.
Yes.
But I don't ever really hear them talk about multiple attackers. And I think that really makes you see Krav Maga talk about multiple attackers. Mm-hmm. Other than Krav Maga, I can't think of any other martial art other than Kajukenbo that really talks about 2-man, 3-man, 4-man, how to actually systematically break them down. Yes.
Yeah. So that's Ahgung's, that was like his forte, right? If you could put, different things, his go point, and it's true. And man, I gotta tell you, I love jiu-jitsu. It's good. I love all martial arts. And a man who masters his own art is a tough man to beat. I don't care what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's just a weekend warrior that learns like 12 martial arts in 3 weeks.
Right.
So, yes, in Kajukenbo dealing with multiple attackers, we use, definitely your surroundings. We're always using our surroundings, knowing our surroundings, how to use that to your benefit, as well as stunning our attacker. We have standard rules with it. We only hit them a certain amount of times because, and we have standard. So like usually we don't stun somebody, and when we hit, we do multiple hits. So when we hit,
why do multiple hits?
Because it basically overloads their sensors. So if I throw one technique at you, bam. But if I throw three within like a half a second, you're not going to be able to catch up to my techniques.
At least maybe the first 2, maybe you compare that the third one's going to hit you.
Yes. Yes. So like, for instance, we don't hit anybody more than 3 times. Then we shield.
Yeah.
right? We'll shield, and we use other attackers against each other, and we'll use the person for balance and focus.
And when you're coming up to the ranks in Kajukenbo, for someone who's never done a class,
Okay.
You know, some of the testing requirements that people have to do is multiple attacks, weapon attacks.
Yes.
Right? Can you talk about just some of the weapon attacks that students are exposed to?
Absolutely. So, you know, so when I say Kajukenbo, you know, definitely I'm referring to Tony Ramos Kajukenbo.
Right.
Because, you know, Ahgung did so much with it. Right. So it's a little bit different. I remember back in the old days, I said, Kajukenbo, you know, does this. And I was a young Sifu at the time. I didn't know better. Internet, you know, was just coming out. And I'm like, and then one of my students comes up to me and goes, of course, Sifu, you know, you said that Kajukenbo does this. And look, this guy got promoted to, he's 12 or whatever. He got promoted to black. Okay, Tony Ramos Kajukenbo, right? So back on that. Yes, so we deal with most commonly dealt with weapons. So at beginning levels, we deal with knife and defense against a knife or a stick.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about Kajukenbo is it did that from day one. Man, that was, you know, they focused on that right away. So we deal with a lot with that. So they'll experience. So back in the day, we didn't start that till we didn't do knife defense and stuff until they've been training like almost a year and a half, right? Mm-hmm. So nowadays we don't do that. We start training it like very soon. Okay.
Really? Why?
Because of today's world.
Wow.
Okay. Because of today's world. So, and we never would teach gun takeaways. You know, that was like Ahgung's rule. He would never teach gun takeaways until they were like a black belt or close to black belt level. And I was like, well, why? He goes, because who carries guns? Well, back in the old days, It was just the good guys who carried guns, right? Cops. So we didn't want to just teach anybody who came into our school how to disarm a law enforcement officer, right?
That makes sense.
But today's world, you can't do that because now, you know, bad guys carry guns and they do it regularly, right?
Yeah. Just real quick, something that really touched me that you said was when you were in that fight for your life, you were talking about, you know, how things flash through your eyes, right? Your mind. You're thinking about your family and stuff.
Yes.
When you teach martial arts, is that something, especially in terms of self-defense, is that something that you try to implement to your students? Like, you know, you need to have something, and I think Tony Blauer talks about it, like something personal, something present. He says you need to have like some kind of why, right? To why you're doing it. Like in those moments of life and death, you need to have something that's in your mind that's going to keep you to fight for the rest of your life. Because I think that makes sense, because if you're just doing it for yourself, people can give up on themselves pretty easily. But when you think about your family, your son,
every New Year's, right?
Yeah, yeah,
they give up on their goal like 2 weeks later, right?
Yeah. But so is that something that you try to implement, especially in terms of self-defense, that you implement to your students?
Yeah, you know, and Joel, I mean, even just something as like how you know, I'm a firm believer of building blocks, right? Have that foundation, and everything that we teach off of a foundation we plug, right? So we constantly just build upon it and plug it in.
Block up.
So like I start out with explaining to them how important a victory is, okay? That you need to have a victory. Every class needs to be a victory. Okay, where there's no losses. Okay, the only time it's a loss is if you don't learn something.
Yeah.
Okay, and it doesn't matter. And then people go, well, you know, my favorite instructor when he teaches, you know, like that, I go, what? You can't learn something? Well, he's not my favorite. I go, okay, but you can't learn something from him, even if it's what not to do.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, well, yeah. Well, they just had a victory, right on. Right?
Yeah.
So there's that victory, but then we talk about hitting home victories, right? And of course, you know, I drill it to my students, but they kind of like subliminally get this stuff, right? You know, because we're doing it little baby steps and feeding it to them. But the challenge is where I got to get in and hammer home is like when I teach seminars, right? So I hit home. I tell them, you know, right, whether it be law enforcement or military, you know, and then of course moms and dads, right? And I explain to them, man, even if you got a pet goldfish at home to get to, right. You know, you got to find it, right? And you just got to find it, and it's got to be there for you because you got to go home, right? You got to have something to go home to.
Yeah. So cool. And yeah, I mean, you're right. Without it, without that why, then why are you doing what, why are you doing it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and people ask, well, why do you do that, right? And it's so I don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Why do you learn how to, pull this out or use that against somebody? Are you paranoid? No, I'm prepared. I'm prepared. Okay? I'm preparing myself. Why are you preparing yourself? You're training your whole time. Oh, Tony Blauer, how can you talk about that guy, right?
Right.
Okay? Right? How awesome, man. What a great dude, right? Very knowledgeable. Definitely. I use a lot of his stuff. Went through his school and everything.
Yeah.
Man, it was awesome. I use that 97-3 rule, man.
Talk about that. The
Oh,
97.3.
man, yeah. So, especially, teaching law enforcement when I did, I talk about 97-3 rule. 97% of the bad guys will go along with the program. They have respect for authority. Woo! What's that today? Okay, right?
Yeah.
So they go like, hey, man, I need you to go ahead and step over here, like that, and they'll step, but then they have that perceived compliance, right? That PC.
Yeah.
The 3%ers, right? The 3%ers that will attack you like a sociopath, like that guy up in the cell, right?
Yeah.
Like that guy that pulled the shank and tried to stab me. That's the 3%ers. Okay, they don't go along with the problem, but they just don't resist. They're going to kill you. They're like a sociopath. They're a sociopath. They're going to kill you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we train for the 3%ers. So I teach these law enforcement academy or new hires or even veteran officers, and they're like, you know what, Amiccucci, but that's just you, dude. You got, you're the only one that can, do these crazy things, get out of your restraints and attack somebody and all this other stuff. You're the only one that can do that. So, okay, time out. Okay. So you're going to train for the 97 people that do everything you want? Or are you going to train for the 3%ers? Because what do I look like? Do I look like I can do what I can do, right?
Right.
Well, no. Like that. They come to. I remember when they would get sent to my school to train for hiring, and I open up the door, and they go, "Yeah, I'm here for training for the law enforcement update."
Yeah.
And I go, "Yeah, come on in, man," like that, and I go, I'm looking for Yamaguchi. I go, yeah, it's Amiccuci. This is Italian that's going to be teaching you today, not the Japanese guy, So, yeah.
It's funny because I remember when my dad, so when I was 18, I was kind of like, probably almost like you in the sense, I'd always wanted to do martial arts, and I just, for whatever reason, I just never got a chance to get into it. And I remember asking my dad, like, hey, where should I go? And he goes, I got this guy. He's amazing. He works with us. Go check him out. I go, okay. Gives me the address, whatever. I go check you out.
Yeah.
Same thing. I come in. The school's not open. I get there before everybody's open. Like knock knock, and then you open the door. You're like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, oh yeah, my dad sent me. I'm telling you who he is. Like he said he knows you or something. And you're like, oh cool, yeah. Come on in. And I'm thinking, all right, where's the Chinese guy? Where's the Asian guy that teaches martial arts? You're like, yeah, that's me. I'm David. I'm like. Same thing. I'm like, who's this Italian guy that trains in martial arts?
Yeah, I always, I said, so Kajukenbo, right? So I go, TRK. I said, how great is this, right? And I joked with Ahgung. I joke when we kid around. I go, look at this. I go, Pops, look at this, man. You got a Chinese, Japanese martial art with Filipino influence because we do the stick fighting. And it's taught by an Italian. What an ethnic joke is that? Oh, man, yeah, so, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, so over the years, like you said, and Kajukenbo is eclectic.
Yes.
That was your upbringing with
Yes.
Ahgung is eclectic.
Yes.
So what things over the years have you added to the art and things that you've subtracted because you just found it like, this is not really that useful?
Okay. So the cool part about is Ahgung had added things that he, of course, than the way it was taught in 1947, 1950 to him. So whenever I wanted to do something, so how I came into teaching law enforcement was I asked him, I said, hey, I want to teach law enforcement. He goes, you're not going to be able to do that unless you're in law enforcement. You know that, right? And I go, oh, he goes, yeah. So that's how I applied for the sheriff's office.
Oh, wow.
So, and I go, okay, I'm here. And then I put myself through the academy. Well, anything that I added to our method, it was approved by him.
Yeah.
I, didn't, smoke and mirrors. But a lot of my senior black belts of Ahgungs looked down upon me because I changed things.
Right.
Right? So, like, we were doing pad work because of my influence I was influenced through Senior Grandmaster Ted Sotelo. And he was an older brother to me, in martial arts. And he gave me pad work, and we worked on pad work, and I started doing that, in the early 90s. Regular Kajukenbo schools weren't doing that. So the older brother's like, he's doing pad work, And then I got approved by Ahgung to train directly under his stick fighting instructor, Senior Grandmaster Kajukenbo. So I got to train directly under him. So he allowed me to implement that into our martial art. Okay? Now, not implement it this much, implement it now this much. Because Tony Ramos went to Cebu City to learn from Kokoi for a month, and then he brought it back, but it was the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Kokoi moved to San Jose, and then we started implementing his stuff. So I trained directly under him, and he allowed me to do that, and I trained all the way up to now I'm a senior master under him, under Supreme Grandmaster Kokoi. And we took that and we implemented it into our martial art. So we implemented that. I implemented a lot of our law enforcement techniques, jiu-jitsu, some of our jiu-jitsu. But the other thing, improvised weaponry,
Okay, talk about improvised weaponry, because I know this is one of your specialties. And I want to highlight, because I remember when 9/11 happened, and it was either the day that happened or the next day. And I remember coming into class, and you gave a really powerful presentation. And you were a lot of it was centered around, you better find the will to win, the will to survive. And one of the things that stuck with me in that presentation is you were talking about, you're like, hey, I don't know what happened on the planes. I don't know the details. But you were telling the class, you're like, you got to find something to survive. And what do I mean by that? And I remember you took a magazine and you rolled it up real tight. And you showed us how that could be an improvised weapon. And how you could really, pepper somebody and disarm, because the plane at that time, they were taken over with people with box cutters.
Yes.
And so you basically showed, like, I could use this rolled up magazine and I'll disarm this box cutting guy, and then I'm going to go into what I got to do, the will to survive. So yeah, talk about improvised weapons. I mean, that's just one of your specialties, I think, and that you're very good at.
So basically, anything that's around you, especially when you're in a new surrounding, I'm always scanning. Well, of course, checking the exits, checking the entrance, not sitting with my back to the door. But then if I'm sitting there and I'm eating and I feel things are going bad, if I don't have anything that I have brought with me or carry on me, then I look for what I can be used as a weapon, around us. And this is where my wife kind of draws the line, with me. She'll be like, she borderline almost gets up and walks out of the table, walks away from the table when I start, right? When I start going. No, but like for instance, do you want me to talk about one or?
Yeah, I mean,
what I look at?
Like one of the things that I know that's very popular. One of the a class that I always recommend people should take that you teach is you call it a Yawara class.
Yes.
But it's kind of changed, and it's changed over the years. You've modified it and made some changes. So just talk about that. That's a great one, I think.
Let me just tap right into because it's kind of like a double hit on it. So let's go back to the magazine.
Yeah.
You remember earlier we talked about you can learn something from everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have So it was a very much a learning experience for me. You have to be a modern day warrior, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So part of being a modern day warrior, you got to be the whole package, right? This is my belief. Don't let me
Yes.
force my belief
Yes,
on
yes.
anybody, right? So part of it is, where did I get that from? The theory, and I'm a firm believer, and I learned this from Grandmaster Amiccuci, right? And what it was he said, when you don't give people credit, like people, like I do a lot of weaponry stuff. Now I take it to a different level, right? I might learn like this much, but I'll take it to my level where I feel I need to take it. My Italian's busting out in me, man. I'm tearing this stuff up. Okay, so what happens is, where I got that from is inmates.
Wow.
They take the magazine, they roll it up tight, and then what they do is they wrap it with sheet. Okay, it is so strong. They take a 30-gallon 30-gallon trash bag. They fill it full of water. So you know how heavy that is, right?
Yeah.
5 gallons of water. How heavy is that?
Yeah,
it's heavy.
It's heavy.
They take it and then they put it on that and they do curls with it. That's how strong that is. So it doesn't just pepper somebody. You break bones with that. Okay? So I learned that from the inmates. And now, of course, they say it's to work out, but it's to cave somebody's head in.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one example. The other example is like I might be sitting at a restaurant, right? And I go, okay, so things go into pot. I don't have anything to protect myself with.
By the way, can't you just use a fork or a dinner knife? I mean, isn't that a weapon?
I'm glad you said that because it is. It is. But, today, today's world, right? They might not have a knife on the table.
Chopsticks.
Right? Might not have chopsticks. They might just have a fork. So what I do is I take the fork and I put it in my hand and, of course I tip them heavily, so I pays for the fork. So I'll take the fork and then I'll manipulate it in my hand. And what I do is you wrap it around your hand and then you take the 2 prongs and you stick it out like this. Now it's a punching device. Improvised weapon, right?
People that are listening to this, they're definitely going to think, this guy's crazy. I was good with him up until now. Now it's gone a little crazy.
Yeah, but that's but the reason why I do that is because I could pick up a glass and hit you in the head with it, right?
Yeah.
But look how scary, right? Because of your thinking, and that's where I wanted to take you.
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh, wait a second, right? I want them to, when I'm like, you're like this, man, right? Okay, but when you try to take my life from me, or my wife, or my children, or my close friend, okay, that switch flips,
that
right?
Switch.
Absolutely, right? So the Yawara, right?
Yeah.
So my thing is finding things that are legal to use, right? Because in today's world,
For sure.
so I'm always looking for that. Now, like if I'm at the house, not too many people have wire hangers anymore, right? But if I'm at the house and I need something real quick, I'll take a wire hanger, pull it like this. I have it like that. Now it's a whipping device, a striking impact weapon. Pop, 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 move real quick, right? Through the air. Now I need something else. So I travel a lot. I travel the country. I teach seminars. One of them is my Yawara seminar. So what I've come up with is I need something that I can travel on TSA and not get taken away. Got to tell you, when I went to that seminar, and when I was on my way to LA.
Okay.
Train with another world-renowned martial artist. Right. The sheriff's office sent me to this one.
Oh, thank God.
It is actually a knife fighting class, and it was put on by Lynn Thompson, who's a lot of people don't realize is a martial artist, owner of Cold Steel
Cold
Knives.
Steel, okay, yeah.
Yes. World's sharpest knives, right? So Lynn Thompson. So training with him. So one of the reasons why
What was that like, by the way?
I'm sorry.
What was that like with Lynn? Is he pretty cool?
He is. He's cool. He's a hard charger.
Yeah.
He's a hard charger. Talented.
Yeah.
Talented. And learned a lot of stuff. And when we were on that trek to go there, it was a knife fighting school, and it was a week after 9/11.
Wow.
When I traveled prior to that to teach my edge weapons course, when I travel, I carried 2 Spyderco Enduras back in the day. and they are both on me, serrated. They're about 3 3/4 inch blades, and I carried one here and one in the back of here, and I walked right on the plane. Because back in those days, well, I take that back. I took them off and put them in the basket. They go, oh, wait a second, and they opened it up. So people are like, how'd they get the box cutters on the plane? Because you could back in those days. They looked at it and everything. Once that happened, boom, no more. Now I got to have something on the plane, the equalizer, right?
Yeah.
So always looking years later, and then all of a sudden, boom. So I researched out and I found something, right? So I found a flashlight, illumination device. So what? I took the flashlight and I'm like, okay. So it's my Uara. Okay, it's a pocket stick for me, and it's legal. So, like on my flyer for my course and stuff, I'm taking this cheesy picture of me on the plane, with it in my hand, right, to show that I got, and they don't even stop you because it's a flashlight.
It's a flashlight,
Yeah.
But that little flashlight you can do a lot with.
Amazing. Yes. I love it.
By the way, do you still, in terms of knives, because that's also something that you're very talented with, is that something, do you still do cold steel knives, or is there a knife that you like now better?
Yeah, I still pretty much I like cold steel. I use those predominantly. I focus on those. There's other good knives out there. I won't say there isn't, but as far as for the thing I like about it is Lynn tries them, and he puts them through insane tests that I don't have to.
Okay.
So like he'll do like push up. So like the most superior blade in a knife fight, of course, is a long fixed blade knife. Well, it's hard to walk around with a machete, with it. Although Lynn does, he's a big dude and he carries like a Bowie that's this big in the back of his pen. He's just it's unreal, right? But my thing is tactical folders.
And you're good with, because I've seen some guys now, they like just the straight blades. A lot of them will carry them kind of in their in front of where their belt line is, and they can just grab it out of the sheath, and then they're ready to use. With I'm not as well versed in knife fighting, but the cold steel, the switchblade, you have to flick it out. Do you feel like that delay in time is a problem, or no?
So switchblade, yeah. I never forget. I did a course, and it was just when they started coming out with law enforcement carry switchblade knives, right? And here I am teaching this knife course, and this hard charger, younger guy, and is on a break. He starts, I'm doing the tactical folder. It comes with the course. We're working. This is what we're here for. And he's pulling out this switchblade and showing everybody, and he's got a crowd around him. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to nip this. I got to nip this, right? So what he did was I go, man, you carry your knife where you carry yours, and I'll carry mine where I carry mine. Okay?
Yeah.
And then it was like his eyes got big, and I go, no, you stand over there, I'll stand over here, okay? And they'll say draw, and we'll draw our knife, and then you simulate like you're gonna cut, okay? And we'll see who can get their knife out first, right? And I had a folder, lock blade folder, and he had the switchblade, and they said draw, and he was cut already. It was just he was still trying to find the button.
Wow.
With it, yeah. So Aldo Coscos actually is the first one that demoed fixed blade, folder, combat folder, to me. He made it quite the experience, he smashed me with it and then did an open, and then I looked at it, and he showed me, it, and he showed me one open, and then I just took it, and I made it for me.
Yeah.
I owned it. And now I have a full blown course that I do with it. Yes.
So cool.
Yeah. And as far as I know, this is a big statement now because there's a gazillion people out there. But him and I and the people that we taught were like the only ones that I know that use the knife that way. That actually open up the knife that way.
The folder style knives.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't feel like it's that common. I see, like I said, a lot of guys going to the straight edge so they can just get it out very quickly.
Yes.
And
I like it
busy.
because when it's well, it's legal. It's that's a huge thing with it. And but I use it closed a lot. With versus having it open. are fixed.
You just use that as an improvised weapon. You're saying
Absolutely,
in a
yeah.
closed position. Yeah.
Yes, because so you have things that the design purpose. So a knife's design purpose is to cut people, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you take it out of that design, right, then it's an improvise, right? It's an improvise, like your handcuffs at work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So but it's an impact weapon, right? When you take it out of it, it becomes an impact weapon, right?
Right.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do you ever get in fights with your wife about her taking your knife and opening like Amazon packages? Because I just got in a fight the other night. I was like, could you not use my cutting blade for that?
I don't even want to show you.
And
Are
then
you kidding?
Yeah.
She's like, you have 50 million of them. But that's my self-defense knife.
That's my self-defense knife.
It's
not
used
made,
for nothing.
It's not made for cutting Amazon boxes.
Yeah.
It's made for that one time or if I need to use it.
Yes. Yes. And you don't need honey, you don't want me to try and pull it out when it's gummed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss the hell out of this guy. Geez, when you tell stories, I was like flashing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Thanks. Me too.
Yeah.
No, seriously, because when I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about my career in law enforcement, and I was just kind of thinking about how I got there, right? And then I was thinking about my mentality now, and honestly, I was just kind of grateful. I was like, dude, I owe you a lot, like I think of, and that's what I was talking about, the mentality game, because when I think about, I had a couple instances in Oakland when I was working in Oakland, and I thought I was going to have to shoot this guy. And actually, after I debriefed him, he said he had AIDS and stuff. He wanted us to shoot him. And he had ran away from us. And so what happened is he ran from us. My partner and I cruised around looking for him. I had my gun on my lap because he was running through the yards, and I was just prepared for anything. And he comes out. Boom. Catch him. I show up. And I'm thinking, I point my gun at him. I'm like, he's going to give up. Like you said, 97% of the time, they give up. The 3%ers don't. So this guy doesn't give up. He looks at me. He goes into his waistband reaching for something. He had a screwdriver or something. I had no idea. And I was like, I don't want to shoot this guy. So I run up to this guy. Should I have done that? Maybe, maybe not. You can judge my tactics, whatever. But I ended up doing a move you had taught us. I'd come up from behind, and I clapped his eardrums, and I brought him back.
Oh, my God.
Anyways, I think about stuff like that, and I just think about, and I remember just being in the academy, right? And, like, I remember, if I tell people the story, I remember being just crazy, like possessed in a sense. And I try to think, like, oh, where did I get that? And I think a lot about just my martial arts and the mental game and just how it changed me, right? And I really feel like you made me and others into just not like machines or anything, but just really just like this warrior spirit. And that is something that I take into my life day in, day out, how I think, how I operate, and I just feel grateful for that. So I just feel like I had to share that because I feel the same way, man.
Yeah.
And even now I feel like it's funny, some of the more recent fights I've gotten into in law enforcement, a lot of it has been using the spear and, using that to Tony Blauer spear, which we worked on a lot, and just using that as kind of like Jack in the Box, boom, using that and then transitioning.
Absolutely.
So, just
indexing
thanks.
palm strike, dude.
I got to bring that back.
Indexing palm strike, man. That is like, man, that's money, man. I had somebody run up on me. Recently at a gas station, and man, talk to the hand, right? And he was like, whoa, I'm like, dude, back up,
What did this guy want?
To see what cell phone that I had. He thought I had the new cell phone out.
That doesn't sound right.
Right? So he runs up, he pulls up in the car, gets out, and starts mad dashing to nice car.
Yeah.
His wife starts yelling at him. I go, dude, you're not from this area, huh?
Yeah.
No, we're from. Yeah, you don't run up on people like that. You know?
Yeah.
Because I was going to drop him, man, if he
Yeah.
didn't stop, man, you know? But indexing palm strike, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you know, we talk about eclectic and just always changing and always
Yes.
adapting. One of the weapons that you use that you're very well versed in is the whip. Can you talk about that? Because I just think it's nobody. I don't know anybody that is using the whip in martial arts.
So, you know, it's becoming, you know, more and more popular, believe it or not. It was introduced to me, you know, it was another one of those things, right? It was introduced to me. Ron Liu was one of the introducers, his instructor to it, and him. We're at a martial arts tournament, and they go, check this out, you know? So I checked it out, and of course, you know, I think a month later I went and bought my own. A pricey toy, right? Especially if it's a good one. I think like 15 years ago, I've been playing with it for probably like 10 to 15 years, right? You know, so it was like $375 to have a whip, classy. But they're beautiful,
Yeah.
because they're hand woven and awesome. So they introduced it to me, and then I basically took it. You know, I do what I do with
Yeah.
it. So my thing is, if I have something, I'm not going to use weaponry just for the beauty of it. The thing I like about the whip is that you learn about yourself.
Wow. Why? Tell me how.
Because you know how you have to have that explosiveness and the boom, but then you have to have that peace at peace, right? So Ron Liu does something called the Tibetan whip, right? And his Tibetan whip style that he does, he calls it the Tibetan wave. So it's very Tai Chi-ish, okay? So it's very boom, flow, very, very flowing. But you know, Grandmaster Ted, right? You know, we senior Grandmaster Ted Sotelo. He's like, yes, you know, he's, you know, it's all about, you know, the self-defense aspect with it,
Yeah.
right? But that calmness when you do the Tibetan whip thing is like Tai Chi.
Yeah.
And it's hard to control it. It's easy to horse the whip, okay? But it'll teach you about yourself. Because if you know, force,
Yeah.
it's going to bite you, right?
Right.
And to have that calmness, you know, to have, you know, that it has that balance, you know, where you can have that balance. But I want things, of course, that I can use it. Is it legal to have a whip in your car?
I assume yes. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Just go back to some kind of cattling laws
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff
a
like that.
farming
It's a
implement,
farming, yeah.
right? It's a farming
Yeah.
implement. So I also, one of my things is the sjambok.
Yes.
Never forget that, right?
Yeah. Nobody forgets the sjambok.
Yeah, so that's an awesome thing also, and I teach that. I teach seminars in that too. It's a South African crowd control tool, yeah, it's my wife hates that weapon, and the reason why she hates it is it really doesn't take skill to use it, and she, you know, so she doesn't like something that, you know, the average Joe can just pick up and start swinging it and being effective with it.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, so that's some of my weaponry stuff.
Very cool. Tell us some exciting projects that you're working on right now.
Well, the exciting project that I'm working on now. When you say exciting, you mean to me?
Or
you mean to me?
Specifically any
Because
project or projects that you're working on that excites you right now.
Okay, well, it's myself.
Yeah.
That's
it?
That's the number one thing,
Yeah,
right? Because you gotta take care of number one, right?
Yeah.
So number one, I'm working a lot on myself, right? That's huge because I have to stay on top of guys like you, man.
Yes.
Because you guys are just coming up, and I just gotta, you know, and I feed off you guys' energy. You know, I feed off all my kids' energy, and you know, some of my kids are like 70 years old, right? You know, when I say kids, I mean my martial arts students, and one of the projects that we're doing, actually my son's he's helping me with it, is we're working on a leadership program for the Tony Ramos Kajukenbo schools. We have 3 schools that fall under our organization. Sifu Arnessa, Iranon, Simo Leah's sister, my sister-in-law, Ahgung's daughter.
She's out of Hawaii?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Big Island, Hawaii. And Sifu Jason Jones in Yelm, Washington State. So I'm working on a leadership program to develop young martial artists, to get them to be leaders, not just in Tony Ramos Kajukenbo, but our community. One of the mantras, and definitely I feed off of that, is not only teaching strong bodies, but hearts, training the heart. And to have that balance, because Kajukenbo was always known for having kick butt martial artists, man. Okay,
Yeah.
and I say, man, I don't want a gazillion kick butt martial artists. I want a gazillion kick butt martial artists that are good people in the community. Because it just helps us build better communities, better futures for these guys.
I like how you said that about. I was not expecting you to say that the exciting project you're working on is you. But I like that because you're right. There's so many people that just don't have any awareness of what they're doing. And so having that, the fact that you cultivate that awareness to make yourself better, right, every day, I think that's amazing. That's awesome. And we should all be striving to be working hard on ourselves. And it should never die, right? You're always trying to grow and get better and better and better.
Yes, and I think it's even on my whiteboard over there. My son wrote it, and man, it makes me feel good. You're my son, man. You know what I mean? When you're doing this stuff, I mean that's what I mean by pushing me.
Yeah.
Doing stuff like this, man, that's just awesome. But, he's writing messages for himself, but for our classes, and he's got Kanai up there, man. And I'm a firm believer in it, right? That constant never ending improvement. And if I can't do it as myself and as an instructor, how can I expect my children and in my martial arts people to do it?
Yeah.
So we always got to strive to be better, right?
Yeah. Cool. You ready for some lightning round questions?
Uh-oh. Okay.
So just so you know, lightning round doesn't mean there's going to be shorter responses. It's not going to be you don't need to
Are you telling me I'm long-winded, man?
No. Well, they're built to be shorter responses, but that doesn't mean they have to be.
Okay.
So
because I'm at a disadvantage because Simo Lee is not like behind you going
cut him out. Yeah. Don't worry. You can talk as long as you want. I don't care. Take your time. All right, ready?
Okay.
If the old you could see the new you, what would the new you say?
If the old you saw the new you, well, basically, if the old you saw, when I say old you, I'm thinking like 18-year-old, 19-year-old. He'd be like, what would he say? The 18-year-old would say to me today?
What would the new you? What would the new you say back to your old self?
If I only knew what I knew now.
Right.
Right? If I only knew what I knew now.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I'd say to myself, man. Because one of the most common questions students will ask me, it'll be like, I'm having trouble getting this. I feel like I've got 2 left feet, all this. I go, hold on, man. I was like a blue belt. And Ahgung would be like telling me stuff. He'd be like, dude, you need to do this, son. You need to do this. You need to do this, right? And even my brother-in-law would, Sifu Conrad would be like, hey, dude, like that. And I'm like, okay. And I'd just like get frustrated with myself. And I'd be like, man. And right around blue belt, don't ask me what it was, okay? But all of a sudden, bing, 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 all these lights started coming on. And I remember Sifu Conrad Ramos was away. He lived in Kauai. And all of a sudden, he came up to me, and he hadn't seen me in like 2 years or a year and a half. And he saw me, and he was like, dude, he actually fought. We sparred. And he was like, whew, he goes, what happened to you? Like, I go, what? He goes, dude, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because I go, lights started coming on, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, man. And he's like, yeah. He goes, keep doing it, man. Keep doing it. I go, right on.
That's cool. Who who has impressed you the most in your martial arts career? It could be anybody.
Okay.
It could be any martial artist that that inspires you or that you look up to, or just somebody. Yeah.
Okay. Not in. I got to do more than one. Is that okay?
That's 100%.
And in non-specific order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, I've been around I've been around like some of the world's most awesomest martial artists and I've been in their presence and trained with and everything. So it could be a long list, but just going to the top three. We're just going to stay with the top three.
Yeah.
Tony Ramos, Senior Grandmaster Kajukenbo, okay, and Senior Grandmaster Ted Sotelo.
Can you just tell the audience just a little bit about Kajukenbo and Ted Sotelo, because I got a chance to meet both of those guys, and those are great.
So
picks. Those are great picks.
Okay,
Ahgung we know about. We talked about him.
Yes,
but,
yes.
Just talk. I mean, Kajukenbo was doing Dos Pares, was doing the stick eskrima. If people don't know, most people hear of eskrima, so they understand that.
Yes.
But stick fighting.
Yes.
But he's been doing that till like he's 90. And was still a badass.
Yeah, 94 or 5 years old. Sparred up until, like, in his 90s, he still sparred, like, 2 or 3 times a week. Man, he was a living legend. Unfortunately, he's not he passed. But, gosh, he was phenomenal. If I just broke it down into 2 words, an awesome person. Okay, gentleman.
Yeah.
World-renowned martial artist. Documented like 100 undefeated full contact stick fighting battles. He was a straight killer.
Yeah.
But he was a gentleman.
He was a gentleman.
Oh my gosh.
You would not get that from him.
He would laugh and look him up on YouTube. People got videos, I have gazillion videos of him. And I saw I was able to see some video old school footage of him when he was 60s, and they said maybe in his 60s you could see his stick. You could see tracers of his stick. But prior to his 60s, you couldn't even see it. It was just a blur. It would just be a straight blur.
Yeah. And then Grandmaster Ted Sotelo.
Yes. He probably was. Ahgung got to work with Bruce Lee. They exchanged ideas. Ted Sotelo was my Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Phenomenal martial artist. Phenomenal. Saw him do his stuff. Not just working with him wise, but saw him do his stuff and just destroy people that, wanted to test his stuff out. Phenomenal. I remember Aldo Coscos, hadn't seen him in years and years, and Teddy walked into a Kajukenbo international seminar and didn't recognize him because he was bigger, and because he wasn't a young kid anymore. Mm-hmm. And right away he said, that guy had his best hands out of all the guys that I ever had. Teddy always had the best hands. And I think until he saw the other stuff that he did, and then he was like, whoa. And Teddy was a very well-rounded martial artist. My benefit is that he wasn't like the typical, what people would say, like a martial artist build. I was very fortunate to have Ahgung allow me to exchange with him because he was a Kajukenbo older brother. He was a mentor. He actually, made a promise to Ahgung that if something happened to Ahgung, that he would continue to mentor us, and he was like, that's my brother, absolutely, and he was always there for us. But his martial arts was phenomenal. One of the things that we exchanged is he wanted my knife. He wanted to learn my knife stuff, so I would teach him the tactical knife because he'd see it, and he was like, but if you knew Senior Grandmaster Ted, he would learn everything and anything because he wanted to learn how to defeat it. So if he was afraid of something, okay, he would try to learn it to defeat it. So, for instance, he had a pet alligator one time or something. He was afraid of reptiles. I wasn't around when he had it. I go, Ted, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. But biggest heart in the world. But by and by, the most talented martial artist I ever had a chance to step on the mat with, definitely.
Why Teddy though? I know a little bit about him as far as Ahgung Kuen, one of his
Well,
one of
yes.
his
So
styles,
he
but
he developed something called Ho Fi Kuen, which
yeah.
is translates into fast fists or Fi Kuen, fast fists. Um, uh, it is and it's his mixture because he did so many different martial arts. Started with Aldo Coscos when he was a little kid. Aldo Coscos moved away. He continued to do boxing. He was like a Golden Gloves boxer. You know, he was getting ready to turn pro, but he had a detached retina, so he had the boxing skills. And what it was is, and that's where some modifications came into the Kajukenbo. In Kajukenbo, the fighting stance was a deep horse stance. Well, try to get that in your work boots and your duty vest and your gun belt and everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's not happening, right? So he was just a martial artist, right? But he modified his stance. He choked his stance up, and we call it like a tiger stance, but we call it our street fighting stance.
Yeah.
And it's a modified hybrid stance, which is like a combination of a boxing / grappling stance. And that's the stance we transition to when we do our street fighting. So he had that expression of Ho Fi Kuen, and he taught me, right? And he goes, David, what you do is your version of Ho Fi Kuen. It's Amiccuci version, if you would.
Yeah.
And which I don't call it that, right?
Yeah.
I call it Fi Kuen. But it's the higher levels of stuff that we do. So his principle is the same principle as Dos Pares. So he trained with Kokoi also, but Kokoi was like Ahgung. And they were innovators, and they learned from their students.
Interesting.
So Kokoi would live half the year here, other half of the year in Cebu City, where his headquarters is. And what was happening was Kokoi would come back to the Philippines, and he'd work, and they'd be like, what is that? You know, you're not fighting the same way. Oh, yes, this is my 1990s version. This is my 2000 version. Every year he'd come back, and he'd go back, and they're like, "What? He's not looking right." And there's no problem. What was happening was he used his core group that he trained with. Okay, is predominantly Ted Sotelo, Junior Cataverio, Alphonse. Those guys are all Kajukenbo guys and martial art, and they were learning. And what they got activated was the offhand. So a lot of stick fighters just use this, but to use both hands and the tracking hand, right? So to get that. So Kokoi, so he was learning because he always wanted to spar. He always sparred. That was his thing. No form. Spar. And that's what he did, and that's what he brought. So with Senior Grandmaster Ted, the principle behind the Dos Pares when Kokoi is the rapid hitting, the pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa, and the arced strikes. So that rapid hitting, it's hard to defend once it gets going. So with Ho Fi Kuen, it's about disrupting the sensory perception of the brain. Now, I will share one quick story with you. I was just learning this from Grandmaster Ted. I totally was... I was working grave shift. I would go to Fremont, where he lived at the time, and we would stay up till like 5 a.m. working out. And we would just be doing techniques, going over David, do this, do that, do that. Everything from that to massaging, doing martial arts massage with each other.
Wow.
And my wife would just be sleeping with his wife on the couch, and they'd be like, oh, you guys are still going? Yeah. And we just would do this regularly, right? And what happened was, I came to Fairfield, and we're in a nightclub, and it was like a karaoke food family, place. And we're in there, and they're doing karaoke, and long story short, a fight broke out in the bar. I'm sending these guys, I'm like, I got to be to work soon, So I'm like, let's go. And I'm like, so I tell my students, I go, hey, one of my senior students was there. I go, hey, take Simo, my wife, and my daughter, and get them out of here. And they did, and as they're getting them out of here, the owner runs up to me and goes, David, please. And he knew me because we used to, be there a lot. And please, they're destroying my place. Please stop them. I'm like, oh, man.
Here we go.
Right? So I walk over, and And I'm like, oh, I really want to get involved with this, But this one guy's running up behind people, sucker punching them from behind. So I'm like, yeah, this guy's got to go. It's got to go. So I walked up behind him, and I put my hand under his armpit, and I put my hand across his chest, and I'm guiding him like slowly. I get him about 3 feet. Next thing I know, the guy comes up and gouges in my face, right? So I kind of like lose it. I lift him up in the air, and I slam him on the tile floor. Now, Filipino club, right? So, bam! So I slammed him down on the floor, and you hear the bam, right? Well, what I didn't realize is when that happened, everybody turned and looked, right? So I dropped him, and as soon as I dropped him down on the floor, I followed up. I was pa 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 pa.
Yep.
I hit him 3 times real quick. And next thing you know, I felt this boom, and I had like a leather coat on, and I felt this boom on my back. And somebody hit me from behind. I didn't realize. I turned around, and I didn't realize, but I started doing Ho Fi Kuen. So I dealt with that guy, and then next thing you know, I got another guy. So I ended up putting my hands on 3 different people. So my guys are getting everybody outside, right? And I'm boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh, smack. Everybody's coming after me now, right? It was like, get the Italian, right? So anyway, so I do it. And I'm like, oh, let's get out of here before a gun comes out, right?
Yeah.
So I run to the parking lot. You okay, babe? You okay? Boom. So I go to get my car, and these 2 guys are following me.
Oh,
right?
brother.
So they run up on me, and then they go, sir! Like that. I go, what? Like that. And they go, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know who you were. I'm sorry. Like that. They're like, apologize. Yeah. I go, yeah, cool, dude. Get out of here. I'm like, get out, So, but I got it. That's the thing right there is that was the first time that I ever used Ho Fi Kuen, and I used it in a multiple attack, and they just couldn't deal with it. And that's where I was like, yes.
Now you're a believer.
Oh,
yeah.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah.
Awesome. What's one thing, if you had to just tell somebody who knows nothing about self-defense, what's one thing you would tell them? If you could only tell them one thing, what would that one thing be? And they were trying to learn self-defense. What's one thing that you could tell them that would make them safer?
Be aware of your surroundings, okay? Project yourself in that positive manner, right? Meaning, chest up, body language, okay?
Yeah.
Chest up, and then a lot of times that'll keep you from even having to put your hands on somebody, especially the would-be, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Making direct eye contact. Hey, let's try something new today. Let's look at people in the eye and talk to them, huh? How about that? Let's do that. Let's try that. What the heck, huh? It's my first homework assignment. I don't know if you remember. It's my first homework assignment when the student signs up, right? Okay? I don't care if they're 3 years old or they're 4 years old or they're like 74, okay? It's all about the life skills, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but walking up in a positive manner, knowing your surroundings, okay? Looking people directly in the eye, absolutely.
So walking around in a horse stance was not one of the suggestions? No, walking around with your hands up in a boxing stance? Not gonna work?
Yes. That won't do it.
Okay. Any books that you'd recommend, and usually any books that have impacted your life, usually I say 1 to 3. I'm a big reader, and I feel like I've gained a lot and learned a lot just from other people. Any books for you that would resonate that you would wish someone else should read as well?
Unfortunately, if you that thing about working on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I found, from talking with my brothers and sisters, right? Large family, 7 of us. Parents. My dad had to drop out of school when he was in 4th grade to raise his mom and his sister, and what we found is that we're hands-on learners, and the reason being is because we have issues with retention.
Yeah.
So that's why we're also hands-on, and my parents had such a strong work ethic that they developed in all of us. So I don't do a lot of reading. That's my negative side, because I have a hard time retaining, So I've found other ways to deal with it. But there is some really good one book that really affected me, and I don't even know if it's in hard copy. It's the paragram of a moral warrior, It's by Dave Rose and Rocky Martin.
Wow.
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
Yes, you got to see it. Dave, you know who Dave Rose is, right?
No.
You don't know who Dave Rose is?
No.
Okay. He was Don Cameron's like right-hand man.
Oh.
Yeah. But they're both decorated war veterans and a really good book. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
I'll put it in the show notes.
yes, and the other one is, in fact, I'll show it to you. Is the Bible.
Yeah.
Bible, man. Every day. So that's a life-changing thing for me. Is born and raised Roman Catholic, right? And we weren't taught a lot about the Bible, right? So that I do that. That's my daily thing. I get up an hour earlier to do my devotional. Okay, and it's just my time. Mine and God's time.
Yeah.
And then. After we do that, I'll journal what's going on. What I need to be. And then last book, okay. It is oh my goodness, Pursuit. Pursuit.
Ooh,
I
I've
gotta
never heard of
share
this.
that with you. Okay, it's a 21-day fasting book, and it's written by Dave. Pastor Dave from the Father's House in Vacaville.
Very cool.
Very cool book, man. It's a life. That's a little life changer right there in itself, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. My next question was going to be: are there any hacks or rituals or practices that you implement on a daily basis? It sounds like you just mentioned one, the Bible and the journaling.
Yes.
Anything else that you do on a regular basis that you would recommend that people should do, and that
Yes.
you get so much benefit out of it? Why is not everyone else doing this?
I do myofascial rolling.
Oh.
With Anthony Crisco. He certified me as an instructor in it, right? And C4 NASA turned me on to it. And it is it's a different type of rolling, and it's with a hard roller, a very hard roller.
Yeah.
And that has done, wonders.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do that. I do that daily.
How long?
So I do try to do a full body when possible. So that takes it can take on the better part probably like an hour and 15.
Wow.
Yeah, an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah. It's like, where do you get all that time, right?
Yeah.
So that's the tough part. So we struggle and do like a partial roll, and you know how that is, right?
Yeah.
It's like warming up one part of your body versus the whole thing. So that's been a very big effective thing that we've implemented. C4 Next actually has a rolling class. I used to have one too here at the dojo, but I had, because I don't have enough teaching hours in the day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I do it myself.
That's cool.
Yes.
I didn't know that. So like just some kind of like 10 minutes, even if you can just get 10 minutes on the roller, just rolling out certain areas of your body that are tight or.
I mean, that would be the bare yeah.
And how many times a week will you do that? Every day or?
Every day if possible.
Really?
Yes.
And you feel like it just keeps you limber and just
it does.
prevents injuries?
It does, because it breaks, your fascia. So I never knew, right, until I did, I was introduced to it, back in the old days, right, I'm dating myself, what's the largest organ in your body? Your skin.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's your fascia. They found out it's your fascia. And, I didn't realize what fascia was or what it does, right? And, what it explained to me, it's like a dried sponge, right? And, that's what you have blockages in your body, and that's what they cramp. When you roll, it breaks that fascia up, and it allows the water to flow through and the nutrients to flow through, and that makes you pliable. That's right.
Very cool. Last question: where can people find you?
Here. No. Where's here, right? You can find me. We're on Facebook. Tony Ramos Kajukenbo is on Facebook. You can also find me at TRKPROF me.com. And our Tony Ramos Kajukenbo headquarters is in Fairfield, California, 1321 Oliver Road.
Very cool. Anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you?
Not that I can think of, man. I was, man, I'm, so honored because this is what being a martial arts instructor is about, man, is to see people, from that 18-year-old kid that came through the door, to a professional, who's taking themselves to another level. That's what being a martial arts dad is about. I'm extremely proud of you. Keep up the good work,
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Grandmaster David Amiccuci. Thank you so much.